Let me take you on a ride through American automotive royalty, the full story of the best-selling Cadillac model in the brand's history, the legendary Cadillac DeVille. This car wasn't just a mode of transportation. It was a cultural statement, a rolling monument to luxury, presence, and prestige. From the moment it appeared, the DeVille was the car for people who had made it, or at least wanted to look like they had. The name, DeVille, first appeared in 1949, but back then, it was just a high-end trim level of the Cadillac Series 62. Even in those early days, it hinted at something grander. DeVille means, of the town, in French, and nothing said uptown elegance like a Cadillac in the late 40s and 50s. But by 1959, Cadillac had spun the DeVille off into its own full-fledged model, and what a debut it was. The 1959 Cadillac DeVille became an instant icon, famous for having the tallest tail fins in automotive history, dual bullet-shaped taillights, and more chrome than a Las Vegas casino. It was a symbol of America's post-war confidence, big, bold, and bursting with futuristic flair. Under the hood, a powerful 6.4-liter V8 provided the thrust, and inside, you were surrounded by plush materials, push-button luxury, and that unmistakable Cadillac quiet ride. In the early 1960s, the DeVille evolved with the times. The fins were dialed back, the styling became more restrained, but the focus on luxury never wavered. Cadillac introduced new levels of creature comfort, power windows, power locks, automatic climate control, and innovations like tilt steering and cornering lights. The car was still massive, still commanding, but the message shifted subtly from flashy confidence to refined dominance. The engines remained big V8s, now 7.0 liters or more, and the ride was smoother than ever, thanks to better suspension and sound insulation. You didn't just drive a DeVille in the 60s, you glided through the world in one. Then came the 1970s, and with them, the third and fourth generations of DeVille, from 1965 to 1976. These were the true land yachts. Think of the kind of car your grandfather would buy to show the neighbors who ruled the block. These cars were longer than a pickup truck, and some of them weighed over 5,000 pounds. The styling featured sharp lines, vertical headlamps, massive chrome grilles, and squared-off rear ends. Interiors were equally indulgent, deep, plush bench seats, acres of wood trim, reading lamps in the back, and even optional footrests for rear passengers. The top engines included the monstrous 8.2-liter V8, one of the largest engines ever put in a passenger car, producing up to 400 horsepower before emissions controls took their toll. These DeVilles weren't concerned with gas mileage, they were concerned with making a statement. You arrived in a Cadillac DeVille. You didn't just show up. But times changed. The oil crisis of the 1970s hit hard, and Cadillac had to respond. In 1977, the fifth-generation DeVille marked the beginning of a new era of downsizing. The car shed weight, almost 1,000 pounds, became shorter, narrower, and more fuel-efficient, but it still kept its Cadillac soul. It was still unmistakably luxurious, with wire-wool covers, opera lights, vinyl roofs, and that unmistakable Cadillac grille. The interiors were slightly more modern, but no less comfortable. Leather or velour seats, AM/FM radios, and digital clocks became standard fare. Under the hood, Cadillac gradually reduced engine size, moving from the big blocks to smaller V8s and eventually even offering a 4.1-liter HT 4100 V8 in the 1980s. It was underpowered and sometimes unreliable, but it was part of Cadillac's transition into a new world of efficiency and electronics. By 1985, Cadillac made another huge shift, the DeVille switched from rear-wheel drive to front-wheel drive for the first time. This sixth generation was boxy, businesslike, and full of new tech. Cadillac leaned hard into digital instrumentation, with cars featuring glowing green digital speedometers, fuel gauges, and climate controls. It was the Cadillac of the future, or so it seemed. The car was smaller than before but still had an imposing presence. Under the hood, the DeVille offered improved versions of the HT Series V8s, 4.5-liter and 4.9-liter options with electronic fuel injection. While not muscle cars, they delivered smooth, quiet power. This generation also saw the rise of trim levels like the DeVille d'Elegance, which included finer interior appointments and more features. In the mid-1990s, the DeVille underwent another transformation. The seventh generation, from 1994 to 1999, introduced a rounded, more aerodynamic body, marking the move away from sharp lines and into the modern luxury era. This was the era of the North Star engine, a 4.6-liter dual overhead cam V8 that produced between 275 and 300 horsepower, depending on trim. It was a high-tech powerhouse, delivering strong acceleration and buttery smooth cruising. The trim levels were redefined, the base DeVille for traditional buyers, the d'Elegance for maximum comfort, and the Concours for a more performance-oriented experience. These cars featured advanced electronics, dual airbags, and high-end stereo systems, some even boasting 12-disc CD changers. Inside, the cabin was cavernous and elegant, leather everywhere, digital climate controls, and even heated seats for all passengers. Then came the eighth and final generation, from 2000 to 2005. By now, Cadillac had leaned into technology like never before. The new DeVille featured night vision, a world first for a production car, using infrared cameras to show a live feed on the windshield. It had OnStar, parking sensors, adaptive suspension, and more sound insulation than some apartments. The car came in three main trims, the base DeVille, the DHS, DeVille High Luxury Sedan, and the DTS, DeVille Touring Sedan. The DTS was especially popular. It combined the North Star V8 with a firmer suspension, better handling, and sporty visual touches. The DHS, on the other hand, was the king of comfort, with ultra-soft seats, rear audio and climate controls, and a whisper-quiet ride. These final DeVilles still featured the signature Cadillac grille and crest, but the design was now sleeker, with rounded edges and HID headlights. The interiors had modern flair, yet still held on to the old-school Cadillac ethos of space and serenity. In terms of body styles, the DeVille started with sedans, coupes, and convertibles. By the late 1970s, the convertible was gone, and eventually the coupe faded away too, leaving the four-door sedan as the mainstay. Throughout its life, the DeVille always offered generous space, especially for rear passengers. That's because Cadillac knew many of its buyers liked to be chauffeured just as much as they liked to drive. Engine-wise, the DeVille started with big, lazy overhead valve V8s, 6.4-liter, 7.0-liter, and eventually 8.2-liter beasts. These were torque monsters, made for smooth highway cruising. Later generations focused more on refinement and efficiency, using smaller displacement V8s like the HT 4.1, 4.5, and 4.9-liter engines, before transitioning to the advanced 4.6-liter Northstar, one of Cadillac's most ambitious and enduring powerplants. As for features, the DeVille was always ahead of the curve. It pioneered automatic climate control, power seats, tilt and telescoping steering, auto-dimming mirrors, electronic dashboards, and later, things like memory seats, rain-sensing wipers, and stability control systems. It was a luxury laboratory on wheels. Design-wise, the DeVille reflected each era perfectly. The jet-age spectacle of the late 50s, the formal elegance of the 70s, the high-tech vibe of the 80s, and the smooth modernism of the 2000s. Every generation carried the Cadillac identity in a unique way, always offering presence, poise, and prestige. The colors ranged from rich metallic blues and burgundies to pearlescent whites and blacks, often paired with padded vinyl roofs and wire-spoke hubcaps. At its peak in 1977, Cadillac sold over 212,000 DeVilles, making it not only the best-selling Cadillac ever, but one of the best-selling American luxury cars of all time. It was a dominant force, aspirational, respected, and instantly recognizable. Today, the early DeVilles, especially from 1959 and the convertible models from the early 70s, are highly collectible. They show up at car shows, parades, and museums as symbols of a bygone era when luxury was measured in feet, chrome, and V8 rumble. The DeVille's reign ended in 2005, when Cadillac renamed the model as the DTS for 2006. But by then, the DeVille had already carved out a place in history. It had served presidents, music legends, business tycoons, and everyday Americans who wanted to feel like royalty for the price of a car. So if you ever find yourself behind the wheel of a Cadillac DeVille, whether it's a tail-fin-toting monster from the 50s or a tech-filled cruiser from the early 2000s, know this: you're not just driving a car. You're commanding a legacy. The DeVille was more than Cadillac's bestseller. For decades, it was Cadillac.